India's never been really good at athletics, and we all know this, right? Right from Milkha Singh, PT Usha, Shriram, for that matter. But this Olympics felt even worse than normal because there were all these athletes coming off their personal best, some as recently as just a few months back, and they performed below par. Now we can get into the reasons of that. Ranjit Maheshwari hit a national record of 17.3 meters in the triple jump, and here he didn't even qualify for the finals. I mean, it was 16.1. He just crossed 16 meters once in his 3 jumps. What's going on here?
I don't know. I mean, I think somebody really needs to look at this. From a very journalistic point of view, I think standards are falling in the sense that nobody questions that how come you do a personal best qualifying mark in the Olympics is done and dusted 3-4 months just before the games only. Why does it happen in Almaty of all places? Why doesn't it happen in India? Of course, Maheshwari's record and qualifying happened in India. But by that mark that he did, he should have been fourth if he would have achieved that only.
Yes.
Okay, if he would have not achieved that, probably gone a few notches below, he would have been in the final,
Right.
which would have been a decent amount of achievement, because if you look at London, he fouled all his 3 jumps. So this is perplexing, this is intriguing, and this is for me, it's very suspicious that you go to the Olympics to do what? We all know that they're not going to win medals.
Right.
That's taken for granted. But you got to do your personal best. You still got to make a mark and come back. You don't go and jump 1.5 meters below your best. You don't go there and run half a second off your mark. That's not done. Dutee Chand and whoever was running. The shocking part was Tintuluka. I really admire the girl. I am a fan of Tintuluka. At the time, I get so angry when I watch her. Whether it is the Asian Games or when I watched her in the London, where she actually came to the semis, and there was so much hope riding on her.
Right.
And then now, I don't understand what is Usha doing with her. I sometimes feel the 10 years of Usha being a coach have been wasted. Usha can take a particular athlete to a level. She's right in one way. Usha has always said she needs exposure. But you got to push for that. You need to take the girl and sit in Europe and run the races.
But isn't there a technical issue with the way she runs? I mean, forget about exposure. I mean, if there's something wrong with the way you run, then there is a problem.
I wish everybody watches that race once again that she did in the Rio Olympics. You got the commentators saying that she is committing the same mistakes over and over again, which is again taking a lead, and then you lose out because you've lost strength, you've lost everything. But if the same tactics continue year by year, then there's something wrong in the coaching mindset, not in the athlete. The athlete has talent. That is the only reason she's there. That's the only reason she was in the semis of London.
Right.
But if you want her to go to the final and have a genuine shot at finishing 4th, 5th or whatever, then you need a different coach. You need to be sitting in Europe. And I think the federation, from my point of view, has no vision. Otherwise, we would be picking athletes like scouts do in Europe. There is no scout here. You have former athletes who go to a national championship, and whoever wins, they feel, okay, let us train him. इसको यहाँ भेज देते हैं, उसको वहाँ भेज देते हैं, and they'll become athletes. I mean, by that logic, we would be winning every gold there.
There's also been, not this time so much, but allegations of doping around the Indian athletics team in particular. Before the Olympics or any major championship, you have all these athletes running away to the Eastern European, the standard Eastern Bloc countries. And we have also had this entire case where a Ukrainian coach who had doping allegations against him reappointed as athletics coach. So do you think there's something wrong with the way our athletes are being trained, or shall I go so far to say that are we using inferior quality dope as compared to Western nations?
I don't know whether we actually use dope in whatever manner, honestly. Steroids are part and parcel of an athlete's life. I refuse to believe that athletes don't take it. I mean, that's like, you're selling me a story that I refuse. It's a fairy tale. In today's world, when 8 athletes line up, you know that they have taken it in some form or the other. The question comes, what doctors you go to? And by a doctor, I mean that you necessarily don't go there to dope to give you strength. You go there to heal your injuries because you want to be fit. in a peak form for an Olympic, for an World Championship,
Right.
for an Asian, for an European. You're not going to be in peak form to run a national championship. Nobody does that. So it's the doctors that they're going to that I have an issue with, if they are going to a doctor. If they're going to East Europe, then there are splinter nations after the Soviet Union was formed that you had so many doctors scattered all over who are now willing to sell their trade or willing to sell their skills for as less as $100,000. But believe me, a top athlete or a top guy who is in the top 3 of the 100 meters or the 200 or the 400 or even the 800, let's put it that way, spends a couple of $1 million to be with a good doctor who can advise when to take what, how to heal the injuries, because at this level you have injuries. You have very, very severe injuries that are bone and muscle related, and you need to heal them because healing is very slow.
Right.
So I think the problem is where they're being sent to. If the athletes are taking dope to qualify or taking steroids or whatever, the coach knows it, the federation knows it, and they are doing it and in a way destroying Indian athletics very simply, because you just can't go to Almaty and do what? I don't understand. And run a championship there and then qualify. Nobody's seen it. Nobody watches on television. There's no journalist out there. There's nobody out there. There's just a press brief that comes. Oh, certain athlete has qualified for the Olympics while running so much time in Almaty. Now, Almaty is like, it could be anywhere for that matter. I think these are the concerns that Indian athletics needs to look at. And honestly, Mohit, the question is, the more you spend,
Right.
the better you get. You go to a government hospital, you get a certain kind of treatment. I'm not trying to say government hospital doctors are not good, but you get a certain kind of treatment. You go to a very, very upper class hospital, you get a certain kind of treatment. So I think even in doping cases across the world, these issues are there and they will always be there.